And it's time now to talk all things tech with Tech Talk. And Matt Dickerson, our technologist, futurist, speaker, author and poet and everything else. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, good, thanks. An exciting week this week, Wayne. It's not every week that a major organisation like Apple has their conference. And, of course, this week their conference has been a little bit different because it's been virtual.
Yeah. So how do they go about it? They just invite everybody to come in?
Well, it's a little bit different normally, and I would normally tune in, get up early in the morning and tune into some of the keynotes and watch some of the presentations. But of course, normally you've got a packed audience, tens of thousands of people attend these conferences, and there's lots of breakouts and a whole range of things. But this one, for the first time ever, was virtual, which basically meant that the keynote was a very slick 2-hour production because they didn't have to do it live. They could do it all pre-recorded, and they made it very slick. It was almost like watching a movie quality presentation.
Yeah, 2 hours, that's a fair bit. I mean, Steve Jobs used to come out and build up the audience, and all of a sudden they'd cheer and everybody would be falling over, nearly worshipping the product. That's what used to happen, isn't it?
It's right, and I'm sure there were a couple of announcements that were made certainly in the keynote when Tim Cook made some announcements. I'm sure he would have normally paused and waited for that audience to cheer and to get excited, and of course there was nothing there. And I thought they might have done like the NRL has done and put some fake cheering in, or put some fake footage in there of some people sitting there cheering, some cardboard cutouts cheering, but no, there was nothing. So I actually found it just a little bit eerie when a major announcement was made and nothing. So it was a little bit different. No, nothing at all. Nothing like that at all.
Speaking with Matt Dickerson, it's Tech Talk, and thank goodness you're unpacking the iOS 14. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there were a few major announcements made, certainly in the keynote, and obviously people normally expect to see Apple make announcements around their latest operating system, sometimes the latest hardware, but the developer conference, which is what this one is this week, it's all about the software, all about developers, what can they do, how can they develop things. So iOS 14, which won't be out for a couple of months yet, but the announcement was all about it this week, will do a few different things. So they'll redesign the home screen. So people have been pretty familiar with what the home screen on their Apple product looks like, but that's going to get a bit of a redesign. And it's one of the things that happens is you get so many different screens at the moment with all your apps spread out across the screens. So they're actually going to pack all those in together into a thing called an app library, which is basically a grouping of those apps, but it's going to use some artificial intelligence to group some of those things together. And I'm a little bit concerned about that one because when you leave artificial intelligence to make things or change things around for you, it gets it right sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't quite get it right. So I'll be interested to see how that one goes. Widgets, they've introduced a new concept with widgets. So at the moment, when you're sitting on your iPhone screen, and the same thing happened with Android screens, you can have little components that sit there permanently giving you information. So for example, you can have a weather widget or you can have a stock market widget. So you can basically have those little widgets. And at the moment on an iPhone, you swipe across to the left and there are all your widgets. But they're changing that so you can actually resize those widgets, a bit more flexibility, but more importantly, put them on the home screen. So on the home screen, you'd normally have the icons that you'd use most commonly. This will basically allow you to have some of those widgets. So you might want the weather on your main screen, or it could be your calendar, for example, might be there as a widget on your main screen. So again, a bit more flexibility about how you use it. Probably one of the ones I'm most excited about in terms of a major change is picture-in-picture. So in the past, if you've gone to watch a video, you've opened up a YouTube video or some video on your phone, and you need to just go back and quickly check a message, you've got to stop that video, come out of it, come into whatever other app you want to use, and then go back to it. But now you'll have the ability with picture-in-picture to leave that video playing on the screen while you check something else. And people are so used to multitasking these days, they won't have a problem, I don't think, having the video sitting there playing over the top of one part of the screen while they're checking other parts of the screen. Very briefly, a few other ones. A Translate app. So there's lots of apps out there, but there'll be a Translate app built into the actual interface now. So that'll make it a bit easier to translate between different countries, languages of different countries. They've improved maps. And one of the things I'm most excited about is that you've got an EV routing option. So basically, if you've got an electric vehicle, it can work out how far you've got to go on your charge and where some EV charging stations might be on your route to basically get you from A to B with enough battery charge to get you all the way, and cycling directions in the maps. The other one that relates to cars, which I know there are some cars that do a version of this now, but this is meant to be a generic version. You've got a digital version of your car keys, and they demonstrated that on one of the keynotes, where essentially you walk up to your car, you pull your phone out, You hold that near your door of your car, the same way as you would with your keys if you had a set of keys and keyless entry. That'll allow you to get into the car. You sit the phone inside the car, and that allows you to access the car and start it and start to drive off. But the really cool part about this one is that with digital car keys, you can then share your car keys. So if you want to lend your car to your son or your brother or whoever, you don't need to give him the keys anymore. You just send a digital key to whoever you might want to have use the car. And you can actually put restrictions on it as well. So if I'm giving it to my daughter and I think she might be a bit dangerous driving the car too fast, I can just share my digital key, but put a restriction on it that says she can't go over 90 kilometres an hour, for example. So it's quite a nice little option there. And the last one on iOS 14 is the app clip. So instead of having to go into an app, download an app, put my details in, register with the app, put my credit card details in if I want to do that. And I had an example overseas earlier this year before we couldn't travel anymore. I was using various scooters as I went around to different places, different cities, different countries as I was travelling through Europe. And so each one I went to, if there was a different brand of scooter, I'd have to download that app, get registered and go through that whole process. So they've also introduced now a thing called App Clip, which is a very small version of an app that allows you, if you just see and I'll use the scooter example again, see a scooter, you wave your phone in front of the scooter, it just pops up a little clip at the bottom, a very small app, and allows the Apple details that Apple's already got on you, so your credit card details, your user details, and uses that to log into that app so it uses it quickly. So when you're doing things like you might be ordering a coffee or getting a scooter or doing something that's just nice and quick, you don't want to muck around with all that downloading and installing, etc. So the app clip is a way to get around that. So I thought that was a good feature as well.
Yeah. Now, what about the iPad? The new iPad.
Yeah, so the iPad OS 14 has got all those same features we talked about, because obviously, effectively, the iPad is a very similar device to an iPhone, but you've got some extra modifications. So you've got search now, and I know this myself. You're sitting there working your way in your iPad or on your computer or your tablet, and you want to search on something, and you lose the screen that you're on to go and do the search, and then you come back and you've got to get your train of thought back to where you were going. So now the search actually hovers over, so you can move that search around and hovers over your other apps, and the search is now a universal search. So it searches on the iPad, in documents on the iPad as well, and then also searches the internet. So if you're searching for something, it will search all those items together and basically drag them into whatever you're searching for. And the Apple Pencil has now been made dramatically better. The Pencil's been great for people that want to do a bit of drawing on their iPad, but that's been about the limit of its capability so far. But now it'll allow you to do handwriting in any text field. So if you've got something you want to search on or a document you're working on, you can actually do handwriting, and it will automatically convert that. If it detects there's a text field there, it'll do that automatic conversion. So again, a bit more usefulness out of an Apple Pencil.
Yeah. You're listening to Tech Talk with Matt Dickerson. Matt, the AirPods?
Yeah, the AirPods, I'm not sure if they'll actually live up to one of the claims there, and it's not unusual for Apple or any tech organisation to make wild claims in one of their conferences or in their keynotes, and then they're not quite backed up. But the discussion around AirPods was that one of the things that happens with an AirPod or any Bluetooth device, you'll have it connected to one of your devices. You want to connect it to another one, you've got to sometimes disconnect it from the first one or let the other one take over from it. It's a bit of a pain sometimes, and you end up not worrying about it because it's all too much of a hassle. And the claim made by Apple in the developer conference this week was that AirPods, and I'll quote directly from Apple here, will magically switch from device to device. Now, there's a fair bit of AI going on there to work out which device you might be working on, which device you might want to use for audio at the time, but it gave the example of working on your iPad, watching a video, for example, and your phone rings, automatically the AirPods will switch over to your phone and have that conversation there. So again, with any sort of AI, you can get it wrong, but potentially this will make it a bit easier for people to use. And the Pro version of the AirPods have got a new spatial awareness for full surround sound. So with two speakers or two very small speakers in the AirPods, it's supposedly got the ability to give you that full surround sound as if you're sitting in a movie theatre where you've got speakers behind you, in front of you, all around you. So again, this is a pretty big claim by Apple that it can give you that full spatial awareness for that surround sound, but they've made the claim. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, and I guess we've got time just before we close to talk about the watch. What is it, the OS 7?
Yeah, so the new OS 7, and this will be the earliest one out. This OS will actually be released next month. So for existing users of the Apple Watch, they'll be able to take advantage of this, not too far away. But one of the things is that you personalise your watch face on your watch. You put various items on your watch face that you want to use, whether it be the temperature outside or the weather forecast or sunset, whatever it might be. But I've done exactly this myself. I see someone's watch and I go, oh, that's a pretty cool face you've got set up there. And you sit there and try and replicate it manually. You'll now be able to share a watch face. You'll be able to send it like a text message to someone else nearby or anywhere in the world and share that watch face. Or you can even have your own watch faces you create and put them online and let other people share those. So that's pretty interesting in terms of a way to customise them. You've now got cycling directions on the watch, the same as you've got with Apple Maps on iOS that I mentioned before. Activity has really been changed to fitness now. So the idea is not just about activity, it's all about being fit and staying fit, and that includes dance as a form of fitness. And one of the things that people have been absolutely waiting for is sleep tracking. So that's now part of the Apple Watch OS, and that'll allow you just to track what you're doing in your sleep, how much you're moving, how good a sleep you're getting. And the last one, which I'm glad they're introducing this fairly early, because if they waited till the new watches and iPhones are announced at the end of the year, this might be basically all not needed anymore, but they've got an automatic detection when you start washing your hands and a timer starts. So you start washing your hands, automatically the timer starts. If you stop before the timer finishes, it will give you a warning to say you haven't washed your hands for long enough. Obviously, this is a direct result or a direct result of COVID-19, people maybe not washing their hands for long enough. So again, just a nice, I suppose, a bit of action, proactive action from Apple to try and reduce the spread of COVID-19.
So a hand comes out and whacks you on the hand. There you go, from your watch. Well, the mind boggles again, Matt. It's always good to talk with you. Matt Dickerson, Tech Talk. Matt, of course, Matt is a technologist, futurist, speaker, author and poet, and there's a regular segment on Outback Mornings. Thanks again, Matt, for that.
My pleasure. We'll chat about some more topics next week, Wayne.
Terrific. Look forward to it. And you're listening to Outback Mornings.